5.
Curry hits a three.
4.
Just for the try. Deep left field.
3.
Patrick hit by Watt. Sack number 10.
2.
Messi with a record-breaking goal.
1.
Welcome to BSS Sports. Now, here are your hosts, Steve, and Trevor.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of BSS Sports. My name is Steve Schill with the ever-lovely Trevor Struthers. You might not be somebody who watches a lot of sports, and just bear with us for a second because we're going to have a topic. The sporting season's being too long, and some people are like, you know what, I wish things were longer, and people say, hey, why is football only 17 weeks long? But then we look around, and in Major League Baseball, you have 162 days of the year in which a team plays. In the NBA and NHL, they're together at 82. In the NFL, they only have to play for 16 days. And in Major League Soccer, there's 32. Now, my question for you, Trevor, is do you think that these seasons are getting too long? Because, I mean, when you look at NBA and NHL players and how hard they play, and sometimes you could say, you know what, they seem like they're taking a night off, or coaches literally rest players. What if the seasons were shorter? They wouldn't have that. The games would mean more. Sure, tickets for events would cost a lot more, but I don't know. I think that it could potentially benefit the sport.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely benefit the sport. You do hear people that wonder, why is hockey still happening? I mean, it's the tail end of the playoffs, but why is hockey still happening in June? And obviously, if you have a shorter regular season, you get into the playoffs quicker, you're able to get through the playoffs quicker and not quite get to those summer months. So from that, it makes sense. Coming from that perspective, baseball made their postseason a little longer. It's not regular season, but it made their postseason a little longer. It's made baseball go on a bit longer. Instead of October baseball, absolutely, it's baseball that will bleed over most likely into November, depending on how long the series go. But the last couple of World Series will end up going 7. So, I mean, you could definitely try to shorten the season. I don't know why baseball needs to play 162 games. I get baseball is a very traditionalized sport. Do you need to play 100? You can play like 100 plus games. Do you need to play 162? Because that is quite a lot. Baseball is a very different sport compared to other sports when it comes to the physical toll. I mean, that's why, you play football once a week is because it's such a physical game, and it ends up going on for about 16 games, which is about 16, 17 weeks. So baseball is not quite as physical, and you're able to get guys more days off ultimately. But I mean, that's because there's also so many games. So I mean, you probably get to see the stars more in baseball if you do shorten that season. And no doubt, I think baseball, you can make the biggest argument for trying to shorten a regular season. Hockey and basketball, I think they found a pretty good spot for it. I mean, like I mentioned with hockey kind of bleeding over into June. Nobody really talks about basketball bleeding over into June, though, because it's not a sport that involves ice. But I think right now, for the most part, they found something where they're happy. And I think for the most part, the consumer, the fans are pretty happy with where hockey and basketball are at for season length.
Well, I mean, on the flip side, it's also supply and demand, for example. And I think that, I mean, if people are willing to sit through 162 games of whatever team they cheer for, kudos to them. I guess it gives them something to do. Now, I guess for the NFL, you think that just mainly it's because of the physical aspect on the players?
You have so many people, and I mean, we just saw it here in Canada at the university level of the Loney Bowl was pushed back due to some sort of dispute that ended up going to court over an ineligible player. So they ended up playing that game. They played that game on the Tuesday, and so then Acadia wins that game. Then they have to rebound from winning the AUS championship to prepare for the UTEC Bowl, the national semifinal, and they're going up against Western, number 2 team in the country, who have been phenomenal all year, I'll say, from an OUA standpoint. So they had to prepare for that. They go out there and they get crushed 80-something to, it was like 87-3 or something ridiculous like that.
That was brutal.
Yeah, it was absolutely brutal.
It's bad for the sport, too. It's bad for the sport when a team gets blown out like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think without a doubt, Western was the better football team and would have been if there was a full rest or, if Acadia hadn't played for a month. But, I mean, the fact that they came in there on like 3 days rest, that's a shorter rest usually than what you would get in the NFL when playing a Sunday afternoon game and then Thursday night game. Because it's like the same amount of days, and they ended up playing an afternoon game, not a night game for that follow-up game. So you hear so many players talk about the NFL, and it's happened in the last couple of weeks. Seattle, the latest team to talk about it when it came to, Richard Sherman going down for the season. The amount of injury risk that comes with playing a Thursday night football game when you had played the Sunday before. And there's an easy way for the NFL to work around it. We've heard it talked about over the last couple of weeks is how about you set it up so that the teams that are playing on the Thursday night game, there's a one game Thursday night The teams that are playing in the Thursday night game are coming off of a bye. And, I mean, I know now we're hitting the last bye, basically, where teams have bye for the rest of the season, but that will definitely make it a lot easier on the team because you'll get, a lot more rest than you're used to going into that Thursday game instead of shorter rest than you're used to. And football is such a physical game that you definitely could not play it any more than what they do right now. So they found something that's comfortable, still injury risk, but, I mean, that's football in a nutshell. If you're playing football, you're taking that chance that an injury is going to happen. It's that physical.
All right, still staying on the topic of football, here's a couple of the headlines coming out of the weekend. Chargers murdered the Bills. The whole, look at Buffalo hype train, that is officially out the window. They're basically free-falling ever since getting smoked by the Saints last week.
Can I ask you a question about the Bills?
Sure.
Why didn't they start Tyrod Taylor?
I don't know. Why don't they start calling Kaepernick? It's one of those just why questions.
Tyrod Taylor is a good enough quarterback to be. I mean, he's not the reason they lost against New Orleans because they couldn't stop the run. Against New Orleans, their defense sucked, and their defense sucked again against the Chargers. But I mean, apparently it's not on the defense; it's on the quarterback. And I know there's some injuries on the defensive side of the ball for the team, but Tyrod Taylor seems to get all the blame when it comes to that organization, and it's not where the blame should be placed, at least in my opinion. And I'm not. I mean, this is the popular opinion when it comes to the Bills and the Tyrod Taylor situation, is that he's not the guy at fault here, but here he is having the blame pushed on him. And I mean, we saw it the other day with the game against the Chargers, and there was a pick six in the game and a fumble that was returned for a touchdown. So really, it was an ugly game from the Bills. And do you go back to Tyrod Taylor? If you're the coach, do you kind of, put the tail between your legs, whatever that saying is? You might have to. You still have an outside shot at trying to make a wild card spot here, and Tyrod Taylor is going to be the guy to do it if you're going to make that spot.
Well, I mean, usually the blame gets put on the coaches, but I mean, this time it's the player at hand per se. But I mean, if Tyrod
the
Taylor,
coaches are putting the blame on the player. I feel like the organization, the fans of the organization, are putting the blame on the coach for starting the backup in the game against the Chargers on the road. But, I think the fans are kind of blaming the coach, and then, the coach is blaming the quarterback or whoever ultimately made the decision. Who knows? Maybe it wasn't the coach. Maybe the coach was told to do something. There are people above his head, but it's an ugly situation. And, hey, maybe they actually win that football game. I think that's a football game maybe that they can win. And, it ended up being pretty much so ugly anyways that maybe they don't, but I think it's a football game they have a shot to win if Tyrod Taylor starts under center.
If Johnny Manziel decided to come out of retirement, he'd probably have a job quicker than Colin Kaepernick. But anyway, the Cleveland Browns still have not won a game. There's really nothing to say there. Green Bay hasn't been able to really score without Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
They lost 20-0 against the Baltimore Ravens.
They have no running game now either. Ty Montgomery's been battling injuries all year. Aaron Jones comes in, he gets hurt. So, now they're on their third-string running back, who's the guy that was supposed to be the second-string running back coming into the year, in Jamal Williams. And so that backfield on offense is a big mess for the Packers.
Going back to the start of the conversation, can you imagine if there was more games in the NFL? We already have so many injuries. Holy
exactly. There's so many quarterbacks that are out for the year and star players, and we don't need any more.
So the Buccaneers are on a winning streak. Go me. We've won the past 2 games. They've been pretty crappy teams, but that's not important. And the Pittsburgh Steelers and New Orleans Saints looking like they're going to do some damage this year. I'm liking the way the Saints are playing. They're putting up massive numbers all the time. Steelers typically a force to be reckoned with, and they were one of the teams that was, with the whole kneeling issue, kind of flimsy here and there. But do you think that one of these teams has a shot at the Super Bowl this year?
Oh, absolutely. I think you have to look at the Saints as a serious contender, and you have to also look at the Steelers as a serious contender, mainly for the Steelers because they're always there. And, on offense, Ben Roethlisberger isn't a top-notch Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, even Carson Wentz now, I guess you could say, level quarterback. But, he's a guy that can get the ball out when he needs to, when he's facing pressure. He's a big guy, too. He's hard to take down. and sack. I mean, but when you have weapons like Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown on the other end of that football, I mean, you're going to find ways to make plays and score some points. They did exactly that in the Thursday night game. And on the other side with New Orleans, I mean, they're a really old school football team with the run game that's now taken over this team. It used to be a Drew Brees ran offense, and now it's a Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara offense right now. And who knows how long they can ride this, but seems like nobody. I mean, this has been going on now for about 5 weeks or so. Nobody's been able to stop the running power of Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, and they've continued to just deliver week in, week out, and it's happened again, and it may continue to happen for who knows how long, but it's quite the two-headed monster, once again, they have going in New Orleans.
So in NBA, LeBron's putting up another MVP season. Same with Mr. James Harden, the Beard. Kind of a weird score coming out of the Bucks versus Dallas Mavericks game. The Mavericks winning that 111-79, complete blowout. Now, if you do not know much about the NBA this season, the Mavericks are like third last in the entirety of the NBA, and the Bucks are known for Giannis Antetokounmpo, whatever the hell his name is. And I mean, Antetokounmpo, he was putting up numbers, but the rest of the team wasn't doing hot. The other day, they beat the Pistons, who are like 10-3, I believe, 10-5. Who are kind of free-falling right now as well, but I don't want to talk about that. The thing that I do want to talk about is if you're looking at the power rankings from last week, it went Warriors, Rockets, Celtics. And for the most part, that's correct until the Celtics beat the Warriors this weekend. And the Warriors were ahead for a lot of it, and then the Celtics came back and decided to take full advantage of their 15-game winning streak. And if you weren't paying attention, the only 2 games they lost this entire year were their first 2 against the Cavaliers, and I forget who the other one was, but again, that was right after the Gordon Hayward injury. So you can blame that if you want, but I mean, the Western Conference is looking insane at this point. Toronto Raptors, they're also up there in the power rankings, and I mean, if we're looking at an MVP this year, James Harden is making things look stupid easy. If you've ever been to a Loyalist Lancers female basketball game, there's a lady named Jenny Thompson, and she makes things look like she doesn't even try. And that's basically the same thing with James Harden, so I'm thinking maybe this year it'll happen. But if you're watching any Cavalier games, it's the LeBron James show. Trevor, how in the world does this guy keep doing this?
Well, I think now he has to do it even more so than he did, right, without Kyrie. And we've talked about it before. I mean, now this is literally LeBron James' team, and this is a guy that just, I mean, even with Isaiah Thomas there, this is a guy that just has to perform and outplay pretty much everybody else on the court to get it done. But he does that. And, you know, I mean, you can make the argument, is a basketball team better with LeBron and some other talent like a Kyrie Irving, or just LeBron? And just LeBron seems to be good enough a lot of the time to get the job done, especially, I mean, it's a weaker Eastern Conference to an extent, right? So when you're going up against some of those weaker teams, that's where you really have the field day and the great numbers for LeBron. But he gets the job done pretty much against anybody. And, I mean, I am interested once playoff time comes. You know, you do hope, even from a Toronto perspective, you hope at some point Cleveland and Boston bump heads and you see what happens there. But, LeBron James has just continued to always deliver. And, I mean, hey, if there is one sport where one guy can go out and win you a basketball game, I've said it for a while, it's basketball, and LeBron James is that guy that can do it.
All right, so final topics here on BSS Sports. In Major League Baseball, the MVP awards were handed out. Jose Altuve winning the Western MVP with 27-30 votes over Aaron Judge, which is pretty insane. Aaron Judge, the rookie out of New York. And a couple of stats on Jose Altuve. Over 200 hits on the season and 32 stolen bases. Giancarlo Stanton winning it for the East with 59 home run. Oh, never mind, I messed that up. Jose Altuve is in the East. Jose Altuve is in the East, Giancarlo Stanton in the
Actually,
West.
That's the whole thing up. I'll just correct you. It's the American League and National League. It's not divided by East and West.
Oh, my God.
American League MVP.
Oh, wow. All right, I totally messed that up. Right, okay. So, American League MVP, Jose Altuve. Western League. Whoa, wow. Okay, I did it again.
League. Holy crap.
The National League.
You got basketball in your head.
The National League, Giancarlo Stanton winning the MVP with 59 home runs. Trevor, take it away.
The voting happens before the playoffs, right? So Jose Altuve obviously ends up winning the World Series with Houston, but I mean they ended up having a magical season in Houston, especially after what happened with the hurricane and everything that happened there from a real life standpoint. So really ended up being magical, and Jose Altuve probably had one of those magical seasons. And I mean, hey, he's a guy that's been. I mean, he's like 5'0", but he's one of the guys that can out-hit anybody, and he can hit for power for a guy, as small as he is. He can hit for power really well, and Jose Altuve definitely deserving of the American League MVP. And Giancarlo Stanton winning the NL MVP, it was a really bad season in Miami, and he was a really good baseball player around a lot of bad things happening, which is kind of a complete 180 from Jose Altuve and the Houston Astros. But, I mean, Giancarlo Stanton, what's really interesting is now apparently the St. Louis Cardinals have made a formal offer for Giancarlo Stanton, the National League MVP, and if he ends up in St. Louis, then look out, because, I mean, St. Louis is a team that's proven time in and time out that they can go out and they can deliver with what all that they have. And so, hey, if they add Giancarlo Stanton, that's a lot of pop to that lineup that is necessarily good from that pitching and defense standpoint. Maybe that's what they need to get over the hump.
That's it for this edition of BSS Sports. Make sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at BSS Sports. Archiving all of our works on YouTube at BSS Productions. For Trevor, Struthers, and myself, Stephen Schill, we'll catch you next Monday.